the Pyro Gyro from Cairo,
And I'm Trivers1.
from Gyro Rivers Gaming. Today we're here with a little bit of a Dota 2 commentary and gameplay.
Recently we had quite a match. It went on for a long while, and it shows a lot of interesting things about the game.
This was one of those games where rather than be like a 45-minute quick Dota 2 match, it was sort of a long, drawn-out, maybe an hour and a half. This was also a single draft match, which means we were playing a little bit of heroes that you wouldn't normally see. I mean, we got some Tinker going. Micah, I believe, got Pudge in the draft. One nice thing I'd like to say about single draft, though, is you don't see a lot of the really overplayed public matchmaking type heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't see a lot of Spirit Breaker or Ricky or Drow or Sniper, which is it's nice to sort of take a break from those heroes.
Yeah, and there were none of those. It was all very strategic. It was all, how is the team going to get together? It was not right-click on enemy and wait for them to die type heroes.
Yeah.
That definitely improved the gameplay a lot.
An interesting thing about this game, though, was early game, things were pretty even. I mean, I got a little bit of early kills going as Tinker. One thing I'd like to comment on, though, was sort of toward the mid-game, we were kind of losing very badly. And people started saying, like, GG in the all chat, and they got very down. But
Yeah.
toward the late game, we started to farm up, and we started to turn around. And I just think it goes to show that in Dota, a lot of people in public matchmaking will say, oh, you know, it's over, GG. But if you play it strategically, and you farm, and you defend, then it's not really over. And we managed to draw this game out for a lot longer than a lot of people would have thought.
Yeah, the first GGs started at like 25, 30 minutes. This game went on 3 times that length. People were ready to give up. Luckily they didn't lose. One person on our team actually disconnected, but luckily one of the other opponents had to go as well, or it would have totally ruined the match, and this was a whole lot of fun, by the way.
And another thing, I mean, that brings us to is, when you're playing single draft, it's a little bit hard to get used to the heroes you're playing, unless you get someone like you're very familiar with. But I think the interesting thing is that, especially for new players, game modes like single draft and random draft are a very good way to get into the game and see a lot of different heroes and characters that you may not otherwise play. I think it's a very good way to find new heroes that you're maybe very good at.
No, yeah, I agree. It's how I've been introduced to a bunch of people who I've liked, because there's either I see people doing really well with someone, or I happen to get them in single draft, and that's how I end up with heroes I play. And it's really handy just to see like 3 heroes, I haven't really seen these, what do they do, that sounds interesting, I'll give it a shot, and just have a great game with them. It's really satisfying.
Yeah, and another thing is, I've played Tinker in the past, but I actually thought it was a little bit interesting playing Tinker, because I don't know how familiar you guys, the audience, are with Tinker, but he's a little bit of a sort of underplayed hero. I don't see him a lot, but he actually has some very interesting potential to be sort of a semi-carry role on the team, because he's a very item-intensive hero. He doesn't have very good stat progression or damage, and especially early game, he doesn't do as much work as you might want out of support. But toward the late game, when he gets some items, his ult becomes very, very effective. And really, once you actually get him farmed up a little bit, you can do a whole lot of interesting plays using him.
Yeah, his ult, if you're not as familiar with Tinker, it basically works as a refresher orb, except for you don't have to buy it, and it doesn't have nearly as high a cost, and it has no cooldown, so you can just, at highest level, you just wait a second, all your abilities up and ready to go, which with Tinker, with a couple of nukes and March of Machines, which will send a whole lot of little guys at them, it becomes ridiculous what he can do.
And another interesting thing to keep in mind is that this also works with items, which essentially allows you to use items like Scythe of Vice or Yule Scepter of Divinity to give yourself a lot of disabling power that Tinker doesn't actually have. And the main thing, though, is that Tinker with a Boots of Travel becomes very, very effective. Because of that, you can refresh the boots. You sort of become a roving, defending machine. You can basically jump around the map, do a couple of March of Machines, kill a bunch of creep waves. It makes for some very interesting gameplay, actually.
Yeah, because we lost our barracks, and that was when a whole lot more of the GG started being thrown around. But Pyro as Tinker was ridiculous, just jumping around, marching machines everywhere, ultimating. And he allowed the other four of us to push, and he solely defended the base with no racks. And I thought, if any hero can do that, regardless of the level, regardless of the items, that's pretty interesting to play. And he's underplayed, so without this single draft match, we probably wouldn't have seen him.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is Micah actually got Pudge, and although Pudge does see a lot of competitive play, he's actually a very popular hero. Micah, I don't think, has played Pudge a lot, and it's kind of interesting, even like with popular heroes, when you get them in single draft, it's a completely new strategy. And exploring a new hero and figuring out some combos is a very nice way to improve your overall gameplay and the roles you can fill on a team.
Yeah, this was my second game as Pudge, just to be clear. I had no skill with it, but I still thought I made some fair plays. Because I learned pretty quickly, the game went on for a while, the team was supportive, and that's new in single draft. In all pick, it's like, oh, you've got to know about him. He's played all the time, whatever, but in single draft is what can these people do? Who's played this? What's my strategy? And people will answer, and it's nice. It's a new thing.
Yeah, and a lot of what I've also noticed is that, especially in these single draft or these random draft type matchups, you can really actually get, I think, a lot more quality gameplay. Because when people aren't playing everything that they're familiar with, it sort of levels the playing field in a sense. You don't have people who play a hero hundreds of times sitting there just wrecking people because they just have infinite more experience with the hero. And really, it also makes the team composition a little bit easier because if you go into a pub, it's very rare that you're going to get a team that's well comprised of a nice balance of supports. So a lot of people want to play carries. And what happens in single drafting, especially when you random characters like Tinker and Ancient Apparition, you can actually get some very interesting support going on, which is nice because, like, I'm not going to say you never get people playing support in pubs, but it's rare. You don't see it a lot. And it makes some very interesting matchups when you can actually sort of get a full range of the different game's rules.
Yeah. In all pick, you'll often have just Sniper, Husk, Drow, Spirit Breaker. There's two carries on either team. So if anyone wants to play carry as well that they're interested in, suddenly they're like, do I do this? And oftentimes they do because they figure whatever, they will too. But in this single draft thing, in single draft, it's no longer, oh, I like this carry, I'll do them. It's which of these should I do? And people pay a lot more attention to the team composition because they're less familiar with the individual heroes oftentimes.
Yeah, and another thing to point out here in terms of going back to Tinker, sort of, um, I think that actually Tinker as a hero was very interesting for someone, especially someone who's only played him like once or twice to get playing, because the thing is, Tinker's first ability is a nuke. It's called, I think it's Laser Beam. I'll have to check, but it essentially allows you to nuke someone for damage, and then you sort of make them miss attacks, right?
Yeah.
So what that's great for us, especially when we're playing against a character like Troll Warlord, and you'll see here in the clip that you can just sort of make even the hardest carries just miss. It's really entertaining, actually. This episode of Gyro Rivers Gaming Dota 2 gameplay and commentary. As is a fairly new channel, if there's anything you'd like to see, if there's anything you'd like, any heroes you'd like us to play, any game modes you'd like us to try, feel free to shoot a comment. We'll be posting a variety of gameplay. We're going to do some Dota 2, some TF2, maybe some Skyrim. So stay tuned. That's it for now.
Yep, we've got a bunch planned, and thank you for watching.